Today's video, we are going to look at franchise failure rates and some of the fibbers in the industry. Now, there's a lot of mistruths in franchising that come from people who really should know a lot better. And if you've been looking around at franchises for any given period of time, you've likely come across this little gem. According to statistics from the U.S. Department of Commerce, less than 5% of franchise outlets fail annually. Wow, so hold on. If I buy a franchise, I have more than a 95% chance of success. Is that true? Please take my money. Now, that statistic is on hundreds of websites. It's used by hundreds of salespeople, brokers, consultants, and even franchisors for no other reason, let's set things straight, but to create a false sense of security in the franchise buyer. Now, I'll show you today why that statistic is completely wrong. I'll show you where it came from. We'll do that a little later on the video. Let's, for now, do a quick Google for that actual statement and see who comes up. Now, I'm only going to click as we go through these on actual franchise companies, just to demonstrate how easily these inaccurate statistics make their way into the general public, and how, unless you do your research, you are going to be misled and susceptible to thinking franchising has this inflated success rate. So here's our search. The first company that comes up is Protein House Franchising. Right here, using a completely inaccurate and misleading statistic to sell franchises. Next up in Google, using our same search term, is Crooked Pint Franchising. Same incorrect statistic. Solo's Pizza. Exactly the same incorrect statistic, giving people a false sense of security in regards to success rate of franchises. Chronic Tacos. Same statistic. Now look at the number of locations Chronic Tacos has. This isn't some small operation. This is a franchisor, a major franchisor with many units that should certainly know better. Now, interestingly, that was just one wording variation of that statistic. If you change the words around slightly, you get hundreds of other websites that are using that same terrible incorrect statistic and using it often. Now, the problem from a legal perspective, these franchises should be worried about. If a franchisee that you sell to, or several, become unhappy or disgruntled for whatever reason, they could potentially argue in court that the premise for them buying this franchise was based solely on these false statistics that were provided by the franchisor. Anyone who is using this statistic to sell franchises is literally putting themselves in potential legal danger. And now we're not even bringing up the fact that they are literally lying to their future prospective franchisees. That's just not cool. Now, if you use a statistic as a validation tool to accept hundreds of thousands of dollars, oftentimes, from your buyers, from your franchisees, you had best verify the statistic before you use it. But where did this 95% success rate for franchises come from in the first place? Well, the funny thing is, anyone who has been professionally involved in franchising for even 10 minutes knows the statistic, as we refer to it, is false. In fact, whenever any true franchise expert sees or hear it's mentioned, it's a huge eye roll moment, because we know this is a completely fake statistic. We know where it comes from. We know you shouldn't be using it. So here's where it came from. Back in the 80s, yes, way back in the 1980s, the United States Department of Commerce contacted about 2,000 franchisees. Many didn't respond. This was completely voluntary. They could or they couldn't. And it begged the question, if your franchise was failing at that time, would you take the time to fill out this survey sent to you by the government? Likely not. You've got your failing franchise to worry about. So right off the bat, this was skewed. So we don't have a tightly controlled study, as alluded, to begin with. We have a deeply flawed survey that was never intended to validate franchising. But only 5% of respondents to this survey claimed that they failed. Okay, irrelevant, really. But over time, salespeople and franchising and all these other people turned that around. They inverted it into a 95% success rate. Okay? That's absolutely not true. It's completely inaccurate. It wasn't a study, it was a survey, and none of it bore any relevance. But salespeople, being as creative as they are, banged the heck out of this statistic for years. And a lot of people got ripped off, let's face it, because of this 5% failure rate, 95% success rate. Wow, that is huge. And it's absolutely false. For 2 decades, it became so pervasive that the IFA, the International Franchising Association, had to send out a formal letter to people back in 2005. Let's take a look at that letter here. What they said was, of particular concern is information claiming that the success rate of franchised establishments is much greater than that of independent small businesses. Many years ago, the U.S. Department of Commerce conducted studies about franchising which presented such statistics. That information is no longer valid, and the agency stopped conducting such studies in 1987. So you know things have gotten absolutely crazy when the industry's own group tells you to lay off and stop using this statistic. Now that letter, it went out in 2005. That was 12 years ago. And yet today we still have franchise salespeople, franchisors, brokers, consultants using it with impunity. Next question, of course, you're going to ask, but Robert, what are the actual franchise failure rates? Well, no one agrees. No one actually really knows. But there are some credible studies, none of which are in complete agreement. But let me tell you why this particular franchise statistic is completely irrelevant to you anyway. Let's say we'll pull a number out of the air that franchising as an industry did in fact have a 95, 96, 98% success rate. But you invested in a franchise that had a 75% failure rate. Isn't that the number that should concern you, the franchise you're investing in? An industry-wide number provides no relevance. It provides no data. Pay more attention to the specific franchise that you're investing in, and don't let them take your attention away looking at some fake industry-wide statistic that bears no relevance. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and if you need help searching and researching your franchises, give us a call. Our consultations are always free. Thanks for watching.